Almost 14 years after it first closed, a cultural gem in Milwaukee's Bronzeville neighborhood is making a comeback. America's Black Holocaust Museum will open its doors to the public in less than 3 weeks. And part of the museum's mission to create dialogue and connection in Milwaukee.
CBS 58's Kim Shine talked with some of the people involved, including the son of the museum's late founder. And she also takes us on an exclusive tour of the new exhibits.
More than 400 years of African-American history is now explained here in Milwaukee, spread out over roughly 4,000 square feet of space inside the new America's Black Holocaust Museum.
So, we start by telling people that the story of African people who were enslaved in America starts back in Africa.
Reggie Jackson is head griot, or storyteller, at the museum. He's taking us through the first exhibits, starting before Africans were displaced by the transatlantic slave trade. It begins in places like the Great Pyramids of Egypt and the Mali Empire, where by some accounts the richest person in history ever lived.
It's King Mansa Musa of the Mali Empire in West Africa.
The new America's Black Holocaust Museum is in Milwaukee's Bronzeville neighborhood. Founder Dr. James Cameron, the only known survivor of an attempted lynching, created the museum in 1988. The original location just feet away from the new site. Dr. Cameron's son, Virgil.
He wanted it to be like a teaching experience because, as you know, history wasn't taught. Our history wasn't taught in public schools.
Dr. Cameron moved his family to Milwaukee and immersed himself in the local civil rights movement.
Telling the stories of the NAACP Youth Council, these young people who marched for 200 days, telling the story of this wonderful alderwoman, Vale Phillips, Father Grappy, who were involved.
Back then, Bronzeville was also a thriving area for African Americans in Milwaukee.
Historically, cities that have had Bronzeville have had them because we as people of color have had our own communities. And every ethnic group and racial group has had their own communities. We've lost our Bronzeville.
But the museum's re-emergence in its home neighborhood is extremely important, says museum president and CEO, Dr. Bert Davis.
The importance of Bronzeville was that it was the epicenter for education, economic development, arts, and culture. If you are able to recycle dollars in your community thrives on so many different levels.
Having a thorough collective knowledge of African American history, starting at pre-captivity, was crucial to Dr. Cameron. Those who knew him say he saw education and information as building blocks of unity.
As we're going through history, you're seeing that things are changing. And I would like to think that maybe we can help that change. And I think that was Dad's idea.
The reopening of America's Black Holocaust Museum is nearly 14 years in the making. The museum closed in 2008 after funding troubles and Dr. Cameron's death in 2006.
Boy, it was devastating.
With help from city leaders, the team was able to keep the museum in its original location. Then the funding started to return. And in just the last couple of years, anonymous donors gave a total of $11 million to the museum, part of which will help create an endowment.
I think one of the things that changed was the fact that people began to have those conversations about racial issues, racial history in America.
Jackson believes these new conversations encouraged reflection and softened concerns for some about a place called America's Black Holocaust Museum and what would be inside.
We could tell the truth. These may be ugly parts of our history, but it's still part of American history.
The museum reopens to the public on Dr. Cameron's 108th birthday. It's a proud moment for everyone who worked tirelessly over the years to make this happen. And with that excitement remains a profound responsibility, not just to Dr. Cameron, but to his vision of racial understanding, reconciliation, and healing. And the museum's footprint does not end here. Dr. Bert Davis says the next phases involve community and educational programming, creating space for artifacts from the old museum, and expansion within Bronzeville. The grand reopening of America's Black Holocaust Museum is Friday, February 25th. The ribbon cutting ceremony starts at 9 a.m. And this Sunday, hear more about the museum and its impact in Bronzeville. Here in the studio, Kim Shine, CBS 58 News.